shows that revenues are actually exceeding expectations. This is a positive signal and reinforces that the 2025 budget remains on solid footing. I will delve further into those numbers shortly, but first, let's take a look at the multi-year income and expenditure projections. Our projected revenues and tax structure for the coming years are closely tied to the pace of economic growth. As the economy grows, we naturally see an increase in tax revenues, driven by higher corporate profits, rising individual incomes, and greater consumer spending. This growth is higher corporate profits, rising individual incomes, and greater consumer spending. This growth is largely driven by increased wage and turnover taxes, supported by new construction projects that are expected to stimulate employment and consumption. This positively impacts key taxes such as income tax, profit tax, and turnover tax. By 2026, the introduction of the tourist tax, projected to generate 18 million guilders annually, will provide a notable boost to revenues. Additionally, while further tax reforms and improvements in tax administration are planned, their impact is expected to be realized in the longer term. On the other hand, during periods of slower economic activity, we can expect a decline in revenue collection. For 2025, we are working with an assumed 3% correlation between economic growth and tax revenues. However, it is important to note that these estimates remain dependent on actual economic performance and will need to be monitored and adjusted as necessary. Based on the submitted 2025 budget, total revenues are projected at 586 million guilders and total expenditures at 577 million, resulted in an approximate surplus of 8 million. Please note that this revenue figure also includes funds from the TWO Technical Assistance Program. Turning to the expenditure side, our multi-year projections are based on several important assumptions across key spending categories. One, personnel costs. For 2025, we've included a 2% salary indexation and a 1% increase in vacation allowance. Bonuses and step increases have also been factored in. Starting in 2026, costs are expected to rise due to staffing for digital transformation initiatives and adjustments related to job classification. From 2027 onward, the operational realization of the new prison will also add approximately 2.5 million guilders in additional personnel costs. Goods and services. We expect moderate growth in this category in line with a stable inflation forecast of 2 to 2.3% per year. The SPARE project, funded with $23 million, will enhance institutional capacity and contribute to spending in this area. Social provisions and healthcare. This is an area of growing concern. Our aging population from 5% seniors in 2011 to 13% in 2022 is increasing healthcare costs. Structural reforms are urgently needed as the healthcare fund faces a recurring annual deficit of around 50 million guilders. Subsidies. A modest increase is projected for schools in the short term, with larger adjustments expected by 2026, pending the outcome of the funding system evaluation. Interest payments. These are expected to increase due to increased capital loan obligations and refinancing agreements. That said, the refinancing of the COVID-related liquidity loans at a lower 2.9% interest rate will help cushion the impact somewhat. In summary, these projections reinforce the importance of continuous monitoring, timely reform, and prudent resource management. By doing so, we can protect our financial stability and ensure that the government remains responsive and resilient in the face of future challenges. Thank you. The following slide provides a detailed breakdown of the projected revenue for the year 2025. alongside the Q4 2024 actuals. Please note that the Q4 figures are unaudited and therefore not final. For 2025, total revenue is projected at 586 million guilders. This amount is composed of the following: tax revenue, 453 million, permits, 23 million, fees and concessions, 67 million, other revenues, 43 million. While I won't go into detail on the Q4 figures, since that's not the main focus of this presentation, I did consider it more relevant to compare the 2025 budget to the most recent available figures, rather than to the amended 2024 budget. That said, the most meaningful comparison is still to come. In a few slides, I will present a side-by-side look at Q1 2025 actuals versus the projected figures. This will provide clear insight into how this year has started and whether our budget remains on track. The following slide provides a breakdown of the 2025 budgeted expenditures, which total 577 million guilders. As previously mentioned, the figures shown for 2024 are based on the quarterly report and do not reflect final year-end numbers. It is important to note that entities and ministries had until March 2025 to submit eligible expenses related to the 2024 fiscal year, which will still be recorded under 2024. Therefore, we anticipate that the final actual expenditures for 2024 will be higher than the figures currently presented. Looking at the 2025 projections, 253 million is budgeted for personnel expenses, which includes a 2% indexation and an additional 1% vacation allowance. 138 million is allocated for goods and services, 36 million for Social Security, 15 million for depreciation, 109 million for subsidies, which includes an increased 2 million guilders already included in the December 2024 submission of the budget 2025 to support subsidies or subsidized schools with the salary indexation and vacation allowance adjustments. 26 million is budgeted for interest and bank charges.
How do ideas become plans? Plans become memories.
So you like my new girl?
And dreams become your life.
This is retirement.
Do you remember when hope became a house? When that house became a home? Your ideas are everything, and we're here to help make them happen. Your idea of yes, I can happens here.
Are you SXM insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXM is cardless. Request your My SXM account today and enter the virtual office of SXM. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
SXM, yeah. Your social and health insurances.
24/7 TV programming on www.stmartinmediacenter.com, SXM Daily News, PBS NewsHour, Now You Know, Com programs, documentary, entertainment, sports events, Saturday children's hours, religion programs, and movies. Click on SXM TV broadcast to see your favorite programs.
Based on the answers that I receive in this public meeting, I will determine if I will support or not. Madam Chair, I move to some questions for the Minister of Finance at this moment. Minister of Finance, I understand you spoke of the need for us to better improve the mechanism and processes for handling budget. However, as I have stated, I have requested, I don't know who the template for amendments should come from, but we do not have it. And I think that one cannot expect to then suggest a template and not present it to the members of Parliament, because at the end of the day, this is a budget debate. And amendments are welcome to come for this as well. But then what will happen? We're going in the same hamster wheel. Madam Chair, through you to the Honorable Minister of Finance, can you provide me a copy with the notice of, listen carefully, the 18th of August, 2003, for the implementation of Article 39, first paragraph, Part B of the National Ordinance on Taxes concerning levying of tax on business turnover in respect of supply of water, electricity, and gas, and if it is still in effect. Next question. Can you list the companies? Well, I know it's private. Can you give me basically the number of companies that currently receive tax exemptions? Not the name of the companies, just the number of the companies that currently receive tax exemptions. I move to the questions of the Honorable Prime Minister. Honorable Prime Minister, there was this is for the Minister of Finance and Prime Minister. There was an article that I read where it says, St. Martin is not able to suffice its current loans, and there's no provision for debt in 2030, 2035, and 2040. Is this article indeed correct? Is this an accurate worry from the CFT? And what provisions will be made to ensure the people of St. Martin stand strong in the future? Honorable Prime Minister, how feasible is the advice from BTP that was presented to GEBE? How feasible is this advice? See, I asked because during my motion, October 29th, your person voted against the motion, stating that there were unrealistic approaches in such motion. And I had the opportunity to read the BTP report, and some of the recommendations are actually in line with what was presented in the motion, and some of them are actually more exaggerated. But I guess because it came from BTP, we would then approve it. So my next question is, I also saw a post, so it could be wrong, could be misinformation, but I'm asking, that GB stands to lose 20 to 25 million if the recommendations from BTP is taken up. Is this accurate? Is this true? And if the Honorable Prime Minister is able to give an answer, if it's accurate or not, that means that the Prime Minister had a conversation with GEBE. So then I would ask, how was that conversation? And are they in favor with such recommendations? And what can they adapt from the recommendations, and what can't they adapt from the recommendations? Honorable Prime Minister, we speak of arm's length when it approaches the government-owned companies, but yet during the urgency before election, the urgency after election, the Honorable Prime Minister stood and did what he had to do to help us acquire generators. Where are those generators? What are the process of those generators? And I remember clearly stating that I would like the process to be sent to Parliament as it goes along. Also, have the generators been placed on bid? If so, who was the company that won? And when can the generators expected to be in St. Martin and fully functionable? What is the government's next step if GEBE says we cannot implement such recommendations? What is the government's next step? Because at some point, the government now has to take the onus. What is happening is exactly as I stated, Honorable Prime Minister, through you, Madam Chair. Honorable Prime Minister made an elaborate announcement, and next day in the front page and praises to the Honorable Prime Minister. But in Parliament, when I said that I hope that the Honorable Prime Minister can live up to his word and relief can be given in July, he put his hands up and said, no, that's not what I said. I submitted something to GEBE, so GEBE has to now make the decision. Understandable, but what is the next step if GEBE does not? Honorable Prime Minister, are you aware? Let me look for this document. As I said, we're going to be... I present to the public of St. Martin, this is the fuel breakdown. Again, I have been screaming, shouting, fuel breakdown price list of St. Martin, whether gas go up or down. And I would like to say, read a couple of stuff. We have freight, we have import duty, liquid throughput, wholesale margin, max wholesale, and turnover tax. This is for wholesale suppliers of fuel. This is to the people of St. Martin. And then right underneath, we have retailer margin, consumer price, and turnover tax again. The government of St. Martin, double taxation on the people of St. Martin. I have said it and I have presented where Sol, the main supplier of fuel, submitted their TOT. And it was said here that a company should not pass on their turnover tax. As a contractor, I was told by the government of St. Martin, you can no longer apply turnover tax in your bids to the government, because the turnover tax is your responsibility, not the responsibility of the person paying you. I have referred to the exemption list, Article 1.12, whereby any vessel carrying fuel is subject to exemption. This can bring immediate relief to the people of St. Martin. And just looking at this, that was dated June 12. Persons that fill their tanks once a week is subject to save $30 to $40 a month. This does not include bus drivers, taxi drivers, tour drivers, those truck drivers that constantly run and have to fill their tanks every other day. Can you imagine the savings that people are going to have? And the savings that GEBE then can offer, because based on discussions with GEBE, based on discussions with SOL, the main supplier is SOL. If we ease the burden there, it trickles down to the consumer. Because again, 5% plus 5% plus 5% is 15% by the time it reaches the consumer.
Are you SXV insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXV is cardless. Request your My SXV account today and enter the virtual office of SXV. Go to SZV.SX and sign up now.
SZV, yeah. Your social health insurances.
How do ideas become plans? Plans become memories,
So you like my new grill?
and dreams become your life.
This is retirement.
Do you remember when hope became a house? When that house became a home? Your ideas are everything, and we're here to help make them happen. Your idea of yes, I can happens here.
24/7 TV programming on www.stmartinmediacenter.com, SXM Daily News, PBS NewsHour, Now You Know, Com programs, documentary, entertainment, sports events, Saturday children's hours, religion programs, and movies. Click on SXM TV broadcast to see your favorite programs.
Minister, I'd like you to provide some information and shed light, because I've been getting some information, but I do not know if the information I have is correct. The emergency debris project, the bidding process, I understood, was stopped. So the two Arubian company were able to participate in the bidding process after your visit to Aruba, and they ultimately won the bids. Can you also give us shed some light as to why you and the SG had to travel to the Netherlands on an emergency note, and who exactly are footing the bills of these traveling expenses because you're traveling with NRPB?
Let me clarify, because I've done this on the floor of Parliament, but I think it still seems to live a very interesting life. No bidding process was stopped by the minister. Contrary to what is actually being put out there, there was actually no knowledge of any of the companies who were bidding when we visited Aruba. Why we visited Aruba is because, of course, we're busy with the whole entire idea of a, excuse me, circular economy, which is a massive part of what we're trying to do with our waste reforms. As it relates to who won the bid, this process is still ongoing, as stated last week, as well by the clarifications of the NRPB on this subject. And until that process is complete and we make a decision, I'll then come back to answer the story about the outcome of the full bidding process. But just for the record, I did not stop any bidding. I did not intervene in any bidding. And that's pretty much all I can say for now regarding that. Regarding the emergency debris, the emergency travel to the Netherlands 2 weeks ago, or last week, 2 weeks ago actually, the rationale for that was, of course, as you imagine, EDMP, which is the Emergency Debris Management Program on the landfill, has been delayed for about 2 years now. Mm-hmm. The amount of work that we have done in the last 11 months alone has actually made it tremendously impactful. We're actually at the point now where we're making a number of decisions about the final intervention plan on the landfill, and that needed to be decided with an emergency steering committee meeting that happened in the Netherlands. Second to that, there was also a discussion regarding cooperation with foreign countries and whatever agreements may have to take place in that context. So we also had meetings with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Ministry of Interior and Kingdom Affairs, as well as I had meetings separate to the entire EDMP project with other various ministries within the Netherlands on different topics within the Ministry of Rumi.
Actually, my question relates to an article or a post that was made where on May 30th, you visited the prison in your capacity as acting Minister of Justice in order to do an on-site assessment. So there's been comments in the newspaper from the legal representatives of the Inmates Association saying the conditions are inhumane, but then there's been releases from the Ministry of Justice, which seems to paint a very different picture. So it's very unclear, at least to me, what are the conditions actually like at the prison. So since you visited, would you find, so 3 specific questions. Do you find the conditions in the prison acceptable? Do you find them to be humane? And do you find them to be conducive to rehabilitation of the prisoners there?
Yes, so I visited the prison. Actually, that was on recommendation by the Minister of Justice, and I welcomed that visit. It was not what I expected because, first of all, that was my first time attending or visiting the prison. What I can say from my observation, clearly there has been a lot of work put in, and I have to give credit where it's due. There was a lot that took place under the Minister of Justice in trying to get this matter to where it's at today. As you know, most of the prisoners have returned to Point Blanche. When I visited, there was a lot of work that was necessary to have them return to the prison in a timely manner. So at that point, not acceptable. At that point. However, I haven't visited since then, and I am sure that the team, along with the Ministry of Justice, knowing the conditions that the prison was in, would not have allowed them to return unless it was in a more acceptable position. Humane as well. You know, there's a reason why we need to do a full reconstruction of the Point Blanche prison, because you want to make sure that the prisoners are in a environment that is very much humane, but that some of the discussions that I had with one or two inmates while I was there was very interesting. And this one inmate made a reference of rehabilitation. And I could totally understand where he was coming from, because what you don't want is you don't want to continue having persons go in and out of the system and not be rehabilitated, to be allowed back into society and be to perform to the best of their ability. And this particular prisoner resonated greatly with me because he said, we need to do something. We need to do something and not continue to, and he used the words, create further prisoners within. He talked about different things that he believed prisoners can do while incarcerated, in terms of with the use of their hands, even going back to school. I know that there was a GED program at the prison. I am not sure if it has continued since the entire fire. Nevertheless, today I can say that because they're there, they have returned. I want to believe that it's acceptable. I cannot confirm that, but I want to believe that it is, because I don't think that the Minister of Justice would have allowed going back to the prison if it wasn't also in a humane position, and we definitely need to focus further on the rehabilitation.